A good coach is an accountability partner. And that applies to you wherever you are in your career, right? Whether you're junior, mid-level, or super senior, CEO, C-suite, you need an accountability partner that is not biased, right? That is outside of your organization and not a friend or a family member.
I'm Patrick J. McGinnis, and I coined the term FOMO. That's short for fear of missing out, and it's why some people end up following the crowd when they should be blazing a trail of their own. But if you want to achieve greatness in business and life, you've got to break free. Come on, I'll show you how. This is FOMO Sapiens, where we explore how entrepreneurial thinkers find the inspiration and the courage to build exceptional lives. Welcome to another episode of FOMO Sapiens, the show for entrepreneurial thinkers. I am your host, Patrick J. McGinnis. Today, we're talking to Mitul Desai, co-founder of the X Quotient, an executive coaching company that, by the way, I am another of the co-founders. And we're going to be talking about a topic that we want to be a little spicy. We're talking about, is executive coaching worth it? Now, let me tell you a little bit about Mitul. He's an executive coach, co-founder of the X Quotient, as I mentioned. He's also the co-founder of a Techstars startup called the Care Hack, and he has experience coaching CEOs of fast-growing firms and private equity portfolio companies, as well as rising stars, investment professionals, and tech industry executives. I feel like you're describing me in all of those. He began his career as an intellectual property attorney, then moved on to roles on Wall Street, the corporate sector, and at the U.S. State Department under President Barack Obama. Mitul Desai, welcome to FOMO Sapiens.
Thank you, Patrick. It's great to see you. I'm excited to do this.
I'm happy to see you as well. Okay, so I'm going to break with protocol and not ask the usual first question that I always ask of everybody, because we're just not going to do that today. We're breaking it up. We're going to go straight into delivering value for folks listening to this who may be thinking about, do I want to have an executive coach? And like, what we're not here to do is to be like, hire us. I mean, if you want to, like, by all means, do it. But we want to talk about this industry because we've met a long time ago. We were at a party about 2 years ago, and Mitul was like, have you thought about becoming a coach? And I was like, I'm not sure about coaching. And we decided to study the industry together, which led us to starting this company. But we'll get into all of that. But I want to start, Mitul, with this question, which is way spicier, which is executive coaching worth it?
That is a great question because, as you alluded to, you and I asked it right before starting this company. Wanted to make sure there was a white space to deliver something valuable. But we know from experience, from talking to a bunch of people, both clients and people who've used coaches in the past, that's like a question that just pops up because if you haven't done it before with a high quality coach, that is a natural skepticism that people have. It's not easy to identify who the right coach is for you, given where you are in your career. There's certifications that may be some signal. There's different methodologies and people with different backgrounds, but none of those things guarantee quality, really. And so I know you also, we share this skepticism that we understand why people are skeptical, right? There's no easy way to figure out ahead of time who's right for you as a coach. And frankly, even just the concept of coaching, it's clear in sports, right? Everyone needs a coach. Even LeBron James needs a coach. Mm. But in business,
especially Bronny needs a coach bad.
Exactly. But in business, you still sort of have to prove the case. Mm-hmm. I could argue that everyone needs a coach at all levels because you need what a good coach can deliver, which is, I'm sure we'll talk about, but yeah.
The thing is though, I'm not going to push back too hard because, you're my business partner, but I would say you may have misspoken there when you said like, it's hard to know if coach is going to be good in advance. It's hard to know 100%. However, if you have, and we'll talk about this, if you've kind of figured out what you're looking for and you spend enough time talking to people, you can make a lot of progress. I think where people go awry is that they don't do the work in advance of figuring out like, what am I looking for? And then spend enough time. It's like dating or anything else, or making a hire. And so you could have an unpleasant surprise, and people a lot of times will say like, oh, I'm really disappointed. But what tends to happen more is that you hire somebody in the beginning, they're new, there is insight. And then over time, it kind of just gets, you kind of flatline in terms of the progress that you're making. And that can happen as well. So let's just dive into, we just talked about, is it worth it? It can be, hopefully it is. But let's talk about the skepticism that you and I shared. Like what is the case against it? Like, I think I'll tell you, when you approached me at that party, you were like, have you thought about coaching? And I was like, people have told me I should do this. You're the 8,000th person. I think I told you. I was like, get in line. But my perception of it was that, I don't know, it was just a little like woo woo. And, I knew some people who did it who were really talented, like a Marshall Goldsmith. But I also know people who were coaches who I was like, I wouldn't pay that person.
Yeah.
They couldn't pay me to give me advice. So yeah, what's the case against coaching?
Yeah. No, I remember the look on your face. Yeah. You were like, yeah. When I suggest that, and you hit the nail on the head, right? Aside from like the shining lights, there's the Marshall Goldsmiths of the world that most people know. Beyond that, there's just a sea of coaches across a number of different backgrounds and quality levels, right? And so the case against it, if I was to argue the other side, and to argue, say someone came to me and said, should I hire a coach? If I was trying to argue them out of it, I would say, listen, coaches, it's rare to find a coach that, first of all, has the experience and the sort of chops around coaching methodology plus actual business experience. And on top of that, you have to like and respect them. Don't forget that part, right? You have to kind of enjoy your sessions. You have to look forward to it. It can be expensive. The good ones, if they fit those criteria, it can be expensive. And consistency is all over the map. You may have good sessions and bad sessions, and over time it may not really be valuable. And so I would just tell you, just figure it out. Just read a couple of books, listen to Patrick McGinnis's podcast.
And that's free.
Watch CNBC, get a mentor. All that together is a substitute for a good coach.
FOMO. Yeah, the thing, it's interesting, like, one thing you didn't mention is this is one of these industries where you have these kind of superstars. And I heard a crazy story that I'm not going to name a name, but one of the big Silicon Valley coaches who's written a book and is very well loved and is so busy that person has no capacity left. And so you can pay that person, I think they have a program, it's like $120,000 a year to be in group coaching with this person, probably like 10 other people. That is absolutely, like, I don't care what this person's doing.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're delivering that kind of value in a group coaching setting. That's madness. But like, people get caught up on these personalities and famous people and whatever. And I get that, because it's a sign of like the fact they've actually done stuff. But there's a reason why people are worried about bots and like ChatGPT. If Marshall Goldsmith came on this very show and he uploaded all his collected works to a bot, and he's like a Marshall Goldsmith bot, like, that'll get you part of the way there, and it doesn't cost anything. So there is, if you're going to talk about the case for not doing coaching, I mean, especially if you're economically constrained, there you go. But let's flip the switch, because a lot of high performers, obviously in athletics, but then also in the business world, work with coaches, and you'll hear them say all the time, like, oh my God, my coach is essential. I know a guy who has 2 coaches.
Wow.
I know, what a show off, right? But it's not me. And I think when you have been coached by a good coach, which I've been lucky enough to do. In fact, I had a session with Ricardo Sunderland, who came on the show. It was like his 30 minutes was worth like 6 months of probably, reading books or something. Like it was just so
Yeah.
incisive, right? He's just such a master. So when you work with somebody who's really good, I mean, it can be uncomfortable because it's like they go deep, right? But you're like, holy mackerel, this is really good. So let's talk about that. Yeah, get into like why one would choose a coach.
Yeah. By the way, I thought you were gonna name me as one of your best coaches. I was waiting for it, but
Well, you are very, but so look at this. I mean, you would be, except that for this kind of shenanigans you're pulling right now, needing to be credited. If you want to have it, the tone of the show be like that, you can go be on All In. Okay, this is not that kind of show.
So there's so many reasons, right, to have a good coach. That is the key. A good coach that aligns with you and your style and your needs. Some simple ways to think about it is a good coach is an accountability partner. And that applies to you wherever you are in your career, right? Whether you're junior, mid-level, or super senior, CEO, C-suite, you need an accountability partner that is not biased, right? That is outside of your organization and not a friend or a family member. And the only way that someone can be truly accountable, and by the way, this is something that it took me a while to understand what makes a good accountability partner. The only way that someone can really hold you accountable is if you listen to them. And who do you listen to? People you trust, right? And so trust is a key component of the overall coaching component, but it really allows you to drive accountability. The other ingredient to a successful accountability partner is they have to understand your context. Mm-hmm. So if you're working at a big company, that's a completely different context than if you're working at a private equity portfolio company or if you're a founder of a startup. There's some common threads for sure around high performance, which we've identified, but there are some unique issues that arise given the organizational context. And so accountability partner, driven by trust and understanding of your context. The other thing I would say is a point of view. You want to coach with a point of view. And meaning not that they're going to tell you what to do. That's not what a coach's job is, but they have a point of view around what high performance is and how you achieve it sustainably. Because, as you and I have discussed when we were sort of coming up with our own unique methodology, is coaches lie on a spectrum, right? You can be completely inquiry based, which means you ask a bunch of questions like a therapist, or you can be consultative, which means you just are sort of advising folks on what to do. The trick really is to kind of be in between and then pivot to each end as required, right? And so that's how you get high performance, and that's how you get people with a point of view. The other thing I would say is the person should have the ability to curate their approach and their style to your needs, right? That's one of the things we ask. What's your style? Some people like to, really directive style. Some people like a softer style. That's important. And the last thing I'll say is your coach should focus on your performance over the long term. Yes, they can come in to solve a specific problem, whether it's like board relationships or fundraising or, an opportunities like new growth stage, growing your team, whatever. There's so many specific challenges and opportunities, but the good coach helps you see beyond that and draws these lessons in a way that allows you to deliver performance over the long term, which oftentimes is about more than just your IQ and your performance at work, right? It's oftentimes things around your emotional intelligence and maybe your health and wellness, right? And your energy levels. You put all those things together and have a coach that allows you to put all those things together. And that's how you get performance over the long term, which is what we should all want.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of things that I'll just kind of highlight, which are worth thinking about. The first is, we were talking about AI a little earlier. Like, AI isn't going to have the context, and that's where you really can't. If you're working with somebody who's very good, who understands your industry or what you do or your function or whatever, has been in your shoes, and is able to remove their own, bias. Because we all come with bias, and you can't remove it entirely, but you have to be aware of it, right? But if you have somebody like that who comes in and has perspective, you can't get that from a bot. And that's big stuff. And then also the sort of the longer term accountability. You can ask ChatGPT to set up a text message every day telling you to do something, and that's nice. But it's not the same. So there is I don't know why I'm so obsessed with AI today. I've just been thinking about it, I guess. but it's true. I mean, it is worth thinking about.
Yeah.
The second thing is about this inquiry-based thing. What we found out as we got into this industry with Mitul is kind of funny. We were pitching a VC fund in Europe, in England, and they said, in the UK, you're taught as a coach you should never, ever express an opinion on anything.
Yep.
Which is like impossible for Americans, obviously. But the person said, as a result, they like to only hire American coaches because the entrepreneurs aren't interested in, I mean, as a coach, you just can't tell people what to do, even if you know the answer, because they won't actually do that thing. You have to sort of come together to a solution. That way the person buys in. Like, that's kind of basic stuff that I learned as I've been doing this and in the training that I did at Columbia University. But not having a viewpoint when something requires a viewpoint is very important. And that's where like the skilled coaches, I would argue, kind of excel, is that they have the ability, they have all these different tools that they're drawing from all the time. And they've seen a bunch of different examples and laps, and they're really good at like working with a client to like bring all these things to the table. And I think it's called, like, in the coaching training, they have this kind of cheesy name for it, like dancing the dance of coaching, something that I would never say. But it is kind of interesting to think about how it's kind of like an improv thing where you have to be there very like listening very carefully, very invested, very present, experiencing what the person's experiencing, and then putting together this conversation that drives them towards, and like all within a you're not spending 6 hours a day doing this. You got to do it in an hour. And it's just there's a lot that happens in that hour. It's pretty intense. Now that brings me to Mitul, I'd love to just sort of like, to share with us one of your experiences coaching. Like what happens in that hour that you're working with somebody? What do you do?
Yeah. So, well, let me start with kind of like sort of the initial phase, right, of onboarding and assessing and all that, because that's so important. The way we describe it is the first sort of phase of our coaching is really about getting a 360-degree view of our client's current state. What are they like? What are their strengths? What are their maybe opportunities for improvement? What's challenging them at work? What's their health and wellness, their sleep, their energy? A full high fidelity view of their current state. Because you can't know where you want to go if you don't know where you currently stand. And that's a combination of assessments that the client fills in, but it's also really about sort of filling in the blanks with conversations and sessions and really getting a deep understanding of that, right? That can include, by the way, a 360-degree assessment of folks that our client works with, manages.
I love a 360, a good 360.
Yeah, I know you.
You learn so much about the person. They learn so much about themselves, and it gives you years worth of things to address and work on together. It's
incredible, especially humbly speaking, the way we do it, right? Which is because we love it so much, and we know it's such a powerful tool, is we really spend the time. These are not sort of surveys that people fill out, right? Whoever is on that list, we set up a call, and it's a real 30, 45-minute call with so much rich information. So that's kind of phase one. Then we take that information and connect it to goals, right? We sort of create a X plan, which has specific goals with timelines and KPIs and next steps. That is effectively the future state, right? Where the client wants to go. And what is coaching? It's basically coaching according to that plan. Like in every session, making sure we zoom out and say, where are we progress-wise against that desired future state that you want to go to? Of course, from time to time, things will come up, like real-time issues like, oh, I had to let someone go, or, there's this incredible deal. Can you help me do the final presentation? Like, these things happen on a week-to-week basis, but we never lose sight of that North Star, of that future state where they want to go. So that's what really the coaching is about, developing that plan and coaching against that plan.
Exactly right. And I think it's about, I mean, if you really dumb it down, it's like gathering data. And oftentimes the person who is the coachee, these are smart people. These are people who've done real things. But like, I mean, it's like, how often do you sit back, Mitul, and I think about myself, and be like, okay, like what do I want to do next year, right? And what are the 4 things that are my priorities, and how do I want to get there, and where am I today, and can I put a number on that, and where are my biggest challenges? And it's like,
it's not just the process of doing that, it's that regardless of where you are in your career, we coach super senior people, right? You develop either because you're super busy and you don't have the time to do that introspection or retrospection, as you said, or you just develop blind spots or you get stuck in certain patterns, right? And so this process, and again, the skill of the coach combined allows you to zoom out, look beyond yourself, and ultimately be your best self, right? The coach is not telling the person what to do. It's pushing them to think more holistically and sort of show up every day as the best version of themselves. So, because, I think this is another, to get back to your initial question of like, what's the skepticism around it? Some folks I've talked to are like, well, I'm a very experienced executive, or I'm a CIO of a massive fund. What does this coach know that I don't already know? Right. And so, there's a lot of book knowledge, but sometimes experience and time and stress causes you to forget some of that. So,
yeah, and it's kind of interesting. I think about like, there's kind of like different levels of this stuff, because like there can be just the highly practical stuff. Like you have a person who is starting a business and like hasn't ever thought about, and I just talked about this on Monday on PatGPT, or Tuesday, excuse me. Should I hire an offshore assistant, and how would I do that? And so it can be very tactical, because I've done that, you've done that. We understand. It's like, okay, here are the things to do. Who should you call? Like, here's how you set it up, or like can be that kind of stuff. Time management, right? There's like, that doesn't require, that's just knowing a methodology and sharing it. So it can be that really, here, read this book, stuff like that. But then, and then the other extreme though is like, I'm thinking of a client that I've been working with this year who has had issues in the past with folks in the organization. I don't want to give any details because we're very careful about confidentiality, but there were trust issues. And that created a pattern of thinking, negative thoughts, that they didn't even realize necessarily they were having. They got used to thinking a certain way that was mistrustful. And there's sort of, when we get into it, like, it's like anything else. If you think that you are short, and every time you walk in the room, you think that's what you think. Yes, you're laughing because I'm short. But if I was obsessed with how short I was, I would constantly be, I actually think I fit quite well in an economy airplane seat. It's like business class to me. And so I reframe that into a positive thing, right? I'm like, it's so great to fit everywhere. But if I was obsessed with being short, that would frame my world. So, it's like, how do we take ingrained patterns of thinking that are not serving us, and then and target those, figure out why they're happening, and then get rid of them or reframe them to positive things. And the thing is, you may not even know.
Usually you don't.
Yeah, you're like, this is what everybody thinks. Well, no, not everybody thinks that they're worthless or whatever it is. It's like that kind of stuff. So
it's you hit the nail on the head, ingrained patterns of thinking. Also, again, we spend in the first few sessions with our clients, we spend a lot of time just building that trust, mutual trust and respect. That is the ultimate foundation of a successful coaching relationship. And once you have that, what it gives the client permission to do is creates a space where they can admit they don't know things. And imagine you're a CEO or a CIO, or admit that they're stressed or they're nervous or they have imposter syndrome or they're not sure they're doing something right. They can't say that stuff in their work environment, right? Usually. And so that allows us to then identify, maybe it's an ingrained pattern of thinking, right? That's causing you to sort of be that way. So 100%, that in and of itself can be really powerful.
All right. Before we go to the lightning round, I got one last question for you, my friend, which is, What should we look for in a coach? I'll let you go first, and I'll give you my take.
My list is probably going to be longer than yours.
Why? Why do you say
Well, then-
that? That is ingrained pattern of thinking that I would disagree with.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm just long-winded.
Jeez.
I think it's a lot of things, right? So let's talk about the sort of the sort of quantitative things, right, or the sort of tactical things. So obviously, education and credentials. There's a whole number of coaching credentials. Some are better than others. You know, you can figure that out. Business experience, right, and that can be in a number of different areas, but it should include a range of different functional sort of roles that they've had. Ideally, it's like not just investing, but also operational roles, managing people, dealing with boards and investors. So their experience should sort of ideally have a breadth to it. It doesn't hurt to have exposure and experience beyond the U.S., given how global a lot of clients' business is. And then I would say are the kind of the intangibles, right? Which is, and that you can only assess through, what's called a chemistry call, right? Where you have this initial call to sort of assess whether this is the right coach for you. Maybe it takes 2 calls. Maybe it takes you talking to their former clients. But to me, these are the differentiators. And this is, do you enjoy speaking with this person? Do you think that they're a clear communicator? Do you respect them? Do you have this innate trust with them? It's chemistry, for lack of a better word, right? Because if you don't have that, all the other credentials and the resumes and all that stuff is irrelevant. I think the two are connected. When someone has the right experience and the right credentials, then that allows them to build trust quickly and respect with the client. But to me, that is the most important. And there's a number of different questions you can ask in the chemistry call to assess that. But really, at heart, it's usually just kind of a gut instinct that where whether they're the one or not.
Yeah, I think, listen, I'm not going to belabor it because I think you hit everything. I will just say that the question of like education, credentials, experience and stuff is there are a gazillion credentials. It's like a for-profit way.
It's its own business.
It's
right?
like universities just want to make a lot of money. These things are not cheap.
Exactly.
So like who knows? I though did go to this Columbia program. Why? Because it's different. Being a coach is different than being a boss or being a board member or an advisor, right? It's a different thing. And so I was like, I should have the humility to figure out what's different about it. So I did this intensive course, and I think I learned a lot there. And you're always learning, but it's a mindset shift that you have to sort of do to. So I wouldn't be super psyched to work with somebody who's like never even like try to figure out why coaching is different. I don't want just somebody to tell me what to do the whole time. I find that irritating.
Right.
And I also think that like part of the reason, and I know Mitul always makes fun of me because I'm Mr. Credentials, but I do think having somebody whose resume you respect means that you'll just take them more seriously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you'll be more accountable to them. And so, and I'm just snobby that way, but I'll admit it. FOMO. All right. Moving on to the lightning round. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Mitul, what's your favorite quote?
Sir.
Favorite quote?
So I have a lot of favorite quotes. My favorite quote in this context, which I probably say all the time, is, and it took me a while to realize this, is that mindset is more important than skill set.
Yeah, I like that. And in fact, we like that so much that we made the tagline of our company, the X Quotient. We actually leveraged that quote. Our little tagline is greatness lives where skill set meets mindset, which I came up one day with that concept. I was just thinking about that quote and I was like, this is kind of cool. So we do use that and we think about that.
Cool.
We like that, right? It's kind of culturally where we are. Number 2, Name one book that every FOMO Sapiens should read.
There's so many books. I have a list of like hundreds of books, probably like a lot of people, half of which I've never read. But I have learned over the years that in addition to mindset, communication, written, verbal, all the different forms is essential. And underneath good communications is storytelling. That all sounds sort of generic and cliche, but it is an art and a science to storytelling. And one of the best books that I've read on storytelling is by the folks who do The Moth, that sort of open mic project, and now a podcast, I think. And so it's called How to Tell a Story by The Moth, cool. By the people at Moth. It's so good.
I love that podcast, and I've actually been to a Moth show.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's really, really good. Okay, I like that. Number 3, what's a piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
Get a coach.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
No, what I would say, I would say in serial seriousness is I probably wouldn't have even known how to use a coach. It didn't have the budget for a good one. But I would have advised my younger self to seek out mentors, like proactively seek out mentors. Even when you're in college, right? It's just game changer. It really is.
I'm telling you, I've always been super shy about that. I don't know why.
I know. That's probably why I was kind of shy. Like, who am I, right? But like, you should not be.
The people I know who are shameless about that, not shameless, but who are brave about that, I should say. Yeah. I have this kid I'm a mentor to, who's a college student in Central Europe, and he got me to. I've mentored him. He's still in high school. He got me to introduce him to a former FOMO Sapiens guest, and he's awesome, right? And like, this kid's going places. I'm always like, why wasn't I like that more? I don't know what is wrong with me, but he has no fear.
Exactly. So, there's that famous, another famous quote from sports, which is like, game respects game, right? So like, if you're a young person and you're hesitating to reach out to a senior person, do not, because the right senior person will respect your hustle and your 100%. Bravery in reaching out to them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. Okay, final one. What's your most important memory?
Wow.
I know.
We're getting really deep here.
Yes, we always do.
Can I give a category of memories? So I think my favorite category of memories are, I grew up in the suburbs in beautiful New Jersey, and it was a classic American suburban experience, meaning we would leave during the summers, leave the house in the morning and just run around with no agenda. And it was the most fun, free, light, carefree days of my life, spending it with friends with no agenda, just running around. It's just incredible. It's play, really. It's play. And I wish as adults we gave ourselves more space and time to play, because on the surface, play seems trivial, but it is so important for your health and your social connections, and frankly for the creative part of your noggin.
Yeah,
you got to play to get creative.
If you want to know what Mitul's childhood was like, you should go watch the movie Goonies. Goonies is that. I mean, by the way, like, I watched that film and I'm like, that was everybody in 1986.
Man, I'm getting nostalgic. You're making me nostalgic. That's those beautiful times.
All right. Thanks for those answers. Now, if you want to find out more about Mitul, you can find him on Instagram at Mitul Desai. You can find him on LinkedIn, Mitul Desai. You can also find him at xquotient.io, where you can find out more about our company. And if you want to reach out to us, if you're interested in coaching, you can reach out at Mitul at xquotient.io or Patrick at xquotient.io. This has been a lot of fun. Mitul, thanks for coming and talking about this with me. I look forward to seeing you soon. I'm sure I will, considering that we're business partners.
Yeah. Yeah, this is great. I love doing this. And yeah, reach out to us. You don't, even if you just want to have some questions, right? Like, we're happy to hop on a call with folks and just chat to learn about your needs. So yeah.
And go check out our website. You can find it. We also have another partner, Danielle. She's amazing. Her bio's on the website. She's like, brings a whole other thing to the table. So go check us out.
Rockstar.
And we will see you soon on the next FOMO Sapiens. Until then, take care of yourselves. FOMO Sapiens. FOMO. If you like today's show, please be sure to rate it and recommend it to your friends. And as always, you can find me on Instagram at Patrick J. McGinnis, on Twitter at PJ McGinnis, and on the web at FOMOSapiens.com or PatrickMcGinnis.com, where you can get all kinds of free resources to live a more decisive and entrepreneurial life. FOMO Sapiens is recorded in New York City. Theme music is by Mike McGinnis, and editing and post-production is by Josh Elstro. If you like today's show, please be sure to rate it and recommend it to your friends. And as always, you can find me at FOMOSapiens.com and at PatrickMcGinnis.com. To advertise on FOMO Sapiens, reach out to contact@FOMOSapiens.com.